Welcome to this evaluation bite-size with me, Sarah Burrows, the Evaluation and Impact Officer here at Youth Access. Today, I'm going to be covering monitoring, evaluation and learning frameworks, otherwise known as MEL or M&E. Today, I'm going to cover what is monitoring, evaluation and learning, why is it important to have it within your organisation, whether that is against your strategy or for a project, when to actually do a monitoring evaluation framework, and how to build one. So what is monitoring and evaluation and learning? What is MEL? Monitoring is a continuous process done on a regular basis, such as quarterly reporting for your organisation or regular updates through a programme if it's long enough. So it's periodically collected data, usually to compare against a baseline, to make sure that the programme that you're delivering is achieving the aims and objectives that it's set. So for example, if you've got a 6-month programme and you want to monitor the progress of it, at 3 months you might collect some research to make sure that the programme of work is achieving what you set out to achieve. So that if it's not, you can refine and change it to make the programme of work deliver differently. Evaluation is typically the end research. After a project has concluded, it is usually a piece of research to understand whether or not the programme of work that you've been delivering has achieved the outcomes and the outputs that you have set. And learning is using the information to inform strategic decisions. Monitoring and evaluation can be used to also test assumptions that work that you're delivering is achieving the outcomes that you desired. So you can use the evaluation to test those assumptions and use the learning of those evaluations to inform the next steps, to inform any strategic decisions that you may want to make. Conducting monitoring and evaluation throughout a programme of work is necessary to assess whether or not a programme or project or intervention is achieving the desired results. When it's done correctly, it uses the information to demonstrate either positive or negative, or direct or indirect changes that have occurred, and targets whether they've been reached or not, all while providing the lessons and considerations for the future work. So that's the learning piece. So why is monitoring and evaluation so important? Why do we have MEL frameworks at all? Monitoring and evaluation is necessary for learning and contextualization of adapting those programs. It also allows you to be accountable, and whether that is internally or externally, it holds you to account to make sure that you're achieving what you set out to achieve. And if not, then you can explain why. It's important that M&E information is in the appropriate formats and that it is shared with both individuals and communities that are involved in the work, and others who also may benefit from reviewing the results, so such as other organisations or funders or national bodies or government. So why is MEL important? So it helps you to decide whether you're achieving what you set out to achieve. It's the thing that helps you understand whether or not your projects or your programs of work or your interventions are being successful in the way that you hoped. So by doing the monitoring, it allows you to check in at individual points throughout a piece of work, throughout an intervention, to make sure that they are running how you hoped, so that if they're not, that you can refine them and tweak them accordingly. It helps you ensure that you're on track strategically, whether that is having a MEL framework for your organisation or for a project. Both of these help you to ensure that you are staying on track strategically as an organisation. And by having it a MEL framework, so by having it written out, it can help you to determine which pieces of information, which data sets are most important to collect. We'll come on to this in a moment about capacity, but you don't, as an organisation, always have the capacity, the time and the resources to collect everything that you want. By having a MEL framework, it helps you to prioritise the data collection. It helps you to understand what the most important data to collect is. So where does a monitoring, evaluation and learning framework fit? So you'll either start with your organizational strategy, then you'll build a theory of change, and against the theory of change, you'll build a monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework to decide how to collect the data, what data to collect, and who is going to collect that data against the different outputs and the different outcomes within your organizational theory of change. And then you'll decide at what point you're going to collect that data. So for example, your outcomes data may be collected annually and your output data may be collected against project deadlines or at regular intervals. Youth Access collects data quarterly. So the monitoring, evaluation and learning framework that fits with our theory of change means that we collect our output data every quarter, and then a lot of our outcomes data happens annually. We then use the output data to understand the short-term outputs and the short-term outcomes of our work. Similarly to this, within a project, you have the project initiation or initiative initiation, and then you build a theory of change, and then again, you have the monitoring, evaluation, learning framework that fits onto your theory of change. Then you can measure and evaluate it. So some key considerations to think about when building your MEL framework and deciding what it is that you're going to monitor and evaluate. The first one is the capacity internally within your organization. Data collection can be really time consuming and require a certain level of expertise depending on how you're going to collect it. So thinking about the internal capacity is the first key consideration that you need to make. I am always having conversations with the team about thinking about what we would like to collect or what we think is really important for us to collect so that we can prioritize accordingly. Secondly, you want to think about whether or not you have the budget or the resource to hire an evaluator. And thirdly is proportionality. You could collect so much data for each area, but you need to think about proportionality of how much time and capacity is really needed to collect the data to see whether or not that program of work or that project is having the desired outputs and outcomes that you hoped. So when you're deciding what to monitor and what to evaluate, it's not about collecting data on absolutely everything. It's about prioritizing based on capacity, based on resource, and based on proportionality. If you're delivering a piece of work and that piece of work is a counselling sessions and you're running it as a pilot and you've maybe delivered 100 sessions, you don't then need to go and necessarily reach all 100 people that have been through that pilot and have an hour's interview with each of them. So you need to decide what proportion of resource needs to be allocated to evaluate and understand this. How can you find out whether or not that program of work was successful in a quicker way, in a more effective way? So thinking about whether or not if you've got 6 counselling sessions and you could do a pre and a post survey, if Warwick Edinburgh mental wellbeing scale, so WEMWEBs, and that's a pre and a post survey. And then you could hire an evaluator to evaluate that piece of work. This is actually the case that one of our members did with us, and I was the one that wrote the report. They had done this pilot project, and so they had done the WEMWEB scale pre and post. So then I followed up by writing the report for our member, and they then used that to inform future work and potentially future funding bids. So think about the different elements and considerations that are needed when building your MEL framework and understanding what it is you're going to evaluate at the end of a project and throughout. How to build a MEL framework. This is a template, and this is one that we use at Youth Access, breaking down the aims and the objectives. So this is maybe the outcomes and the outputs. As you can see, the third column is then output indicators and outcome indicators. The information collection methods. So how is it that you're going to collect it? What kind of research might this look like? Are you going to collect quantitative data or qualitative data? And when and by whom? And how are you going to report and use this data? Is that going to be in an impact report? Is that going to be for funders? Is that going to be for public consumption? What's the purpose of collecting this information? Outputs are the information about what you're doing. For example, the number of sessions, the number of young people seen. And outcomes are usually the information about the effect of your work. For example, the improvement on young people's mental health, the improvement on their well-being as a result of attending the sessions. The outputs are usually the shorter term measures in which you'll collect data on, and the outcomes are the longer term. And here is an example of a completed MEL framework. As you can see, the outcome is more young people seen in the service. You can see from this template, you've got the kind of outputs and the outcomes that you want to measure. For example, this may be that you want to see more people in the service. And the indicator may be that you want to see a 15% increase. The information collection methods may be that is the number of people seen through your service. This may be collected by the program manager. You may be already collecting this data. It's maybe relatively low on resource. And how might it be used? How are you going to report on it, and how are you going to use it? This information could be included in an annual report. In secondary, you've got young people who access our service have a better outcome. The indicator could be a percentage increase of wellbeing scores. And the information collection methods could be WhenWeb's data collection and qualitative data collection. So this could be a data analysis done on an annual basis from the project or program of work. And then you could also complement this with interviews with a small sample of young people who attended this service to understand the longer term impact and to build on the evaluation by including both qualitative and quantitative data. It's important when you're conducting evaluations to try and collect both. When and by who might collect this. So you may have a data team, and it might be the data lead, and they may want to collect and do a data analysis at the end of each year. How might you report it and use it for funding applications, for end of year, for year-on-year tracking, for accountability? There's multiple different uses, and again, it comes to that question around capacity, proportionality, and whether or not you might need to hire someone, depending on the resource. And the importance of building this framework in the stage after the theory of change is that you can start to think about collecting a baseline. Additionally to that is what points throughout the program are you going to collect any data? And it allows you to collect pre and post, or if you want to see change in people, understanding where they are when they start to where they are when they finish, helps you to draw a correlation from the project being delivered to the results. It also helps you to put any funding aside for evaluations that may be needed. So for example, if you've got a £10,000 budget for a piece of work, you may want to put a little bit aside for an evaluator to support on this, to increase the capacity internally if you haven't got that expertise and capacity already. In summary, that is what is a MEL framework, what is the difference between monitoring, evaluation and learning, why we have it, including all things accountability, strategically allowing you to check in to ensure that project or program is on the right track. It helps you to test assumptions. We've also covered when to do it and how to do it. So when to do it if it's organisational and on a project, and why you do it at that stage, why it's really important to bring in evaluation early on in a project, even though sometimes it's more natural to think about it at the end, and what it looks like to create it. So that what do you have? You have a table that shows you the breakdown of what you want to cover, what you want to collect, how and when and who is going to do that, and what are you going to use it for. If you've got any questions, please email me at sarah@youtheaccess.org.uk.